Hello everybody, welcome to another fantastic episode. Today I got a special episode for you, just because by the time you see this video it'll have been my birthday. I'll be turning the big 50, the big 50. I thought my birth certificate was wrong, but I've checked it a few times, added the math together, and I am actually turning 50. It's hard to believe, but it's true. So in my head I figured it out by the calculations and everything that I've had at least 43 years experience of gaming. So I want to kind of talk about the systems that I grew up with that kind of made me who I am up until I was 15. So from when I first started at 7 years old up until 15, and the video games, kind of skimmed through them because I can't talk about everything because there's so much, and just kind of skimmed through the systems and the video game systems and experiences. So let me know in the comments before I start this video what your first video game experience was, or your first video game system. So whatever game you played first, or whatever system that you got first. So without further ado, sit back and let's check it out. So I'm in the far right there, the red shirt, and I'm probably about 10 or 11 there. Now that's both my parents, mom and dad there, and my grandma. Now this is the Sears Pong machine my mom brought home, and this is the first home console thing we played. Didn't have fun, but my mom did, so that's all that counts. Now here is Asteroids, and on the Atari, this is the arcade. Now this version I saw in the arcade. This is the first arcade game that I saw, and we were at a convenience store, or actually not convenience store, a shopping store, buying groceries. And this is the first game that I saw, because every store you went to had arcade games, and this was it. And I played one game, but I was still too young to figure out the mechanics. Then a couple years later, the new Asteroids came out with a painted background and new graphics and new enemies and everything else. And by then I would have been probably 9, so I was a lot better at video games by then. And so this is when I started taking interest into video games, really. And then finally we came home with an Atari 2600, and this is one of the first games that I really enjoyed playing on it, was Chopper Command. And I was always having my grandfather take pictures of me with my high score, because if you sent the high score in and you got a high enough score, they would give you a t-shirt. Never did get a t-shirt, but as a little kid, probably about 10 or 11, let's see, was I about 9-year-old, I guess. It was pretty fun. Now I played a lot of this game too, and this is Missile Command. The Missile Command is a big thing, especially for kids in the 80s, because we were going through the Cold War, and even as kids we kind of didn't know how serious the implications of a Cold War is, but we would emulate it through our video games, playing this Missile Command, trying to save cities from nuclear attacks. And I played this game quite a bit on the Atari 2600. It was one of the ones I played more than others. And I really could say during the Atari days I was interested in games, but I really wasn't a gamer yet, but I was having a lot of fun still. And this is one of them that contributed to it. So definitely fun game, Missile Command. Now the next game, Berserk. Classic 1982 Atari game. So I would have been 9 years old when this came out, and I think I was playing it when I was about 10 or something in my grandparents' house all the time. And I believe my cart was damaged, because I remember the case being broken, so it was just basically the insides. It still worked and everything, it just didn't have the plastic case on the outside. So I would play this game quite a bit. And a lot of these games on the Atari, especially back then, they were fun to play, but you'd have to use your imagination a lot with the game, because they didn't have, as you can see, back in the days we didn't have backgrounds. That's how old a gamer I am. We had graphics, but we didn't have backgrounds. So fun game. And Combat, the very first multiplayer game that I ever played with my brother. Unfortunately it's only 2 players, but fantastic game. You can choose between different levels, a bunch of different things, as you can see, different types of games with cover and stuff, and not only tanks, But you can switch it up here. Here's some invisible airplanes, so you can have airplane wars, fly and try to shoot each other. And I think it's just a high score. Whoever gets the highest to 10 wins or something like that. And as you can see, there's multiple modes, and including jets. So definitely Combat was a fun game, and it was our multiplayer game for the Atari 2600. So we had a lot of fun, and probably a lot of arguments, me and my brother, over who was cheating or what, because of being young and being our first multiplayer. But definitely a fun game, and I wish there would have been a single player experience, but there never was. And that, like I said, is the Combat. And I'm recording these on the Nintendo Switch, so through the Atari 50th anniversary collection, because it does a fantastic job. Crystal Castle. Now this game, I really didn't play tons of it. I had it. It wasn't my favorite, but it's still kind of interesting. It was definitely stepped down version compared to the arcade, but at the same time it was a home port of an arcade game, and it wasn't terrible, it wasn't bad. Miner 2049er is a fantastic game. Your object is to mine the whole cave, so basically all the purple flooring you see up there, as soon as you run over it, it's basically you're mining it as you go. So as you see, it's changing solid color, and you have to change 100% of the levels solid before you go to the next. And there are some little bit of hazards and traps and things, or not traps, but like hidden holes and things like that, and of course enemies you have to dodge. So you have to be careful not to fall in a pit that you may not know about. You can take the slides here down, and as you see, I'm going over here to this way, and then there's a pit that I'll fall down to because it's not be able to be seen. So you kind of have to use your muscle memory and remember where the pits are, and then jump. Yar's Revenge. Now this is another game that I played a lot of, and it came with a comic. I forget about the comic, exactly what's going on, but I think you're a space bug and you're trying to take out that enemy. So pretty interesting. As you can see, I have tons of Atari games in the corner there, tons of games that was given to me, and lots of ones I played over the years. So definitely fun. I couldn't cover them all because I'm kind of rushing through this, but definitely lots and lots of Atari games. Now the crash of 1983 happened. Video games, the market crashed in the United States. It was crazy times. Now here is my grandfather and I. I'm probably about 5 or 6 in this picture, before the young in gaming years. My grandfather was an electronical engineer, so he did all that kind of wiring stuff. He graduated from Princeton University, and he worked for NASA originally. He helped design the NASA program going to the moon, and then later he was building airplanes and different types of jets for many years. And then one day, I was probably about 9, he gave me a speech about computers were going to be the next biggest thing, and he surprised me with a VIC-20. It was probably like 1982, I believe, is when it is. I'm thinking about it. And there is the VIC-20 itself. And so I finally got some cartridges. First, he bought me some programming books, and then I really enjoyed making my own games. But these are the few cartridges that I did own. This is Tooth Invaders. It was sponsored by the Dental Association, and as you can see, fantastic little game, charming, where you have to brush the teeth and floss them. And as you can see, I saved the tooth there. And when the song plays for a little bit, kind of like Pac-Man, the ghost, the cavity creep is defeatable. So you can hit him while the music's playing with your brush and wipe him out for a few seconds there. But when the music stops, you have to clear a next tooth before you can do it again, and you get a certain time limit till the song ends. So it is a fun little game. I have run into dentist offices back in the day when we'd go as kids, and they did have this game in the lobby, and we'd play it. So pretty fun little game, charming. This is Vic Rat Race, also known as Radar Rat Race. And as an adult, I can see why my grandparents were annoyed by the Three Blind Mice song over and over. just plays the first chorus of Three Blind Mice over and over and over. And I remember my grandfather would always say, "Can you please turn it down?" So I'd have to turn it down, and I can see why. But fun game. Now here is Gorf. It's a fantastic little game. Plays like a little bit of everything. It starts off with like Space Invaders. Have you ever played Space Invaders, where they're attacking downward? They're kind of, but then it also has this level which plays like I can't remember the game on the Atari now. Laser. I can't remember the name of it. There was another laser game on the Atari 2600, but this plays like the level of that. So Gorf kind of mixes it up. The third level, you're flying through flying through space, and then they're flying at you, and you have to shoot them out. And there's only one, but they throw this like fiery asteroid at you each time as you're going through, and it gets harder and harder as you go. And you have to fight the very end, the mothership, and you basically have to destroy that little red core in the middle. So you have to dig your way, blast your way to the core, and explode the ship. And then every time you end up passing the ship, you gain a new rank. So you start off as cadet, and then you work as captain, I think it's major, and so on. So as you see, I made space captain, and then you continue on, and it gets a little harder and challenging. Now here is a Mega Race. Fantastic little game. Really enjoyed this game back in the day. A lot of fun. Simplistic graphics, but it's just challenging. It was fun. I don't know why. Especially even today, it's still fun. Basically, the levels get a little harder and harder as you fly through and blast all these enemy ships. Not much in graphics, but the gameplay is pretty solid, and you can bounce off the walls, so that's what makes it challenging. When you're flying through space, you got these thrusters similar to Defender, so it's really hard to control your ship a little bit, especially when you're confined in a box. Basically, you can't get out of space here. You're trapped in this box fighting them. And then the Commodore 64 came out. This is all during the crash of '83. When the systems crashed, we were playing games like this. So unfortunately, I couldn't get a Commodore 64 since I got a VIC-20 the year before. But I did go to a friend's house and play it. And eventually, later on, got my own Commodore 64 many years later, just recently actually. But in all these years, I wanted one, just never had one, and I can really enjoy it nowadays. But I did have a lot of fun with my VIC-20, and like I said, I did go to a friend's house, and he had it. So we played lots of Commodore 64, and some games that I can't get working yet. I wish I could get Mail Order Monster working. I tried patched versions and everything, can never get the game working. That was the first game that we downloaded on the pre-internet in Los Angeles, because his dad worked for IBM. So that was the one of the games we played. We played a lot of flight simulators he had. We played the games that I'm showing on his Commodore 64. I didn't get to see tons because it was his Commodore and I didn't go over there all the time. But these are some of the games that I do remember. And the Batman looks a little funny to me nowadays. Doesn't look like Batman for some reason. Looks a little porky or something. But interesting. And the awful version of Double Dragon. Now, I don't know if this was ever fun for anybody on the Commodore 64. But if you played it on any home console, then you came to this. It's quite terrible. I can't even do any of the special, like the jumping moves. Well, you can jump, but you have to hit the space bar. And then finally in '85, the NES came out. It was a test in New York and in Los Angeles, and lucky enough my neighbor got it and I didn't get it yet, so I had to wait like 5 or 6 months till I finally got one. But I was always, any time in school when I had free time, drawing little Mario characters, drawing the blocks, drawing levels. A lot of fun just drawing what I would think I'd eventually enjoy playing. And I got to play just briefly at my friend's house in the neighborhood. And they had Commando and Super Mario Brothers. And they had the Rob the Robot, which we ended up trading something for, because I didn't get to Rob the Robot, but I traded him one game and he gave me Rob and Gyromite. so I could play with Rob the Robot. But as you can see, Mario definitely started my gaming obsession. This is where I became a gamer. And then when Legend of Zelda came, I woke up Christmas morning and saw the gold cartridge. And I think I did see the commercials earlier through the year. But when I got this game was amazing, and been a Zelda fan ever since. And this game is really fantastic. This is our Breath of the Wild back in the day on the Nintendo NES. And was just a huge adventure, especially back then compared to nowadays. It's really tiny, but back then this thing was huge. It was like a massive adventure, and there was nothing like it yet. So had a lot of fun playing this. Me and a neighbor both had this. He got it at the same time, and we were both comparing. He'd come over and check to see where I am and see where he is, see who we could give each other clues, help each other beat it. I ended up beating it first, but it was fantastic. Unfortunately, I didn't really capture the gameplay. I almost forgot about it, of all things. So I just captured the beginning intro. So sorry about that, but I'm sure everybody's seen Legend of Zelda. So pretty fantastic game experience. And Punch-Out. Well, actually, my game was Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. I still prefer the Mike Tyson's Punch-Out over Mr. Dream. But either way, fantastic game. The game's exactly the same, just different character at the end. But I really enjoy Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, and unfortunately to this day I still cannot beat Mike Tyson. I've tried and tried, and I know how to do it. Just my timing's terrible, so I can never beat him, but I can pretty much knock out everybody in the first rounds, second rounds, all the way to the end. And just when I get to Tyson, I blow it. I've gone even to points where we've gone to decision, and I lost just by the split decision. So unfortunately, to this day, every once in a while I try to beat Mike Tyson, and it just hasn't happened. But definitely Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, fantastic game, and I really love it. Now here is my favorite RPG of all time, the Dragon Quest series. I really love it. I like it better than Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy is good, but I like even Dragon Quest a little bit better. And maybe it's because I have nostalgia for it, because it was the first RPG that I picked up, and then I picked up Final Fantasy. And there are some great Final Fantasy games also. It's just that I love the Dragon Quest series a little bit better. And pretty cool, lots of nostalgia with this game. And like I said, over the years I've beaten this more than 10 times. Recently I beat it again, actually, maybe even 11 now, but I beat the Game Boy Color version of it, because I never played the Dragon Quest 1 and 2 on the Game Boy Color. So I beat it again all over on my Analog Pocket and really enjoyed it. It's just like I said, it's kind of like the feel-good game. I know what to do. I just go around grinding, leveling up. Here is Final Fantasy. This game was huge for its day. To find your way around, you felt like you were in this giant world, in this giant quest to, finish the story. I forgot exactly what the end boss was, but definitely a fantastic game. You have to get to the island and grow up, and enjoyed Final Fantasy. Now, everybody loves Contra back then. Contra is a fantastic game. Great run and gun, and definitely challenging. And that's why they had the code to get 30 men right off the bat, because it's how challenging the game was, but a lot of fun. And I've played this so many times over the years too, and it's just another feel-good fun game. This and Super Contra, both are really good. I really enjoy both, and I most of the time make that same mistake where I get myself shot up. It's just like I never learned from it over the years. But definitely a good game. I really love it. My favorite weapon or favorite gun in the game is the spread shot, because I think it works really good for me in this game. Balloon Fight, a really fantastic game. Sort of a joust-like game, but very unique in its own right, and I really love it. Love the little graphics. Love the little penguins with parachutes, and you're a little balloon boy there. And there's just some really great level design and a lot of fun gameplay. And there's a second game, different mode, where you kind of do this adventure mode through the levels, and it's a lot of fun also. Now, to the Sega Master System. I really enjoyed this system. My parents surprised me with it, because I'm not only love Nintendo, but I love Sega also. I love all games. I love all systems. And Shinobi was one of the first games that I played on it, besides Safari Hunt and Astro Warrior that came with it. But I really enjoyed Shinobi, and I played the heck out of this game, and I had a lot of fun with it. The Sega Master System game may not be as graphical as its counterparts, but at the same time, it has some extra gameplay elements, cool bonus levels, and it's just a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this game. Especially back in the day, it was popular being ninjas too. Ninjas in the 80s and early 90s. So having a game where you're a ninja going around throwing stars at people, taking people out, fighting cool enemies like this is just awesome. And I really enjoyed Shinobi, the Shinobi series. And I hope we get to see some more of these back in the day. Some more new versions, some 3D-ish versions. I know they've done it with some other characters, but they haven't done Shinobi yet, so I would like to see Shinobi have a new game of some sort, bring the franchise back. Now this game, next game, is Shoplifter. Fantastic game. We played it a lot on PCs, Atari, and so on through the years. But I think this is the best version of Shoplifter, or one of my favorites at least. And it's just because the extra gameplay elements they added to the Master System. They added new characters design, new levels, new enemies. And it's just a lot of fun the way it moves and runs. The controls feel fluid on the Sega Master System. And it's a great version of Shoplifter. And as you can see, everything just seems very good. I've played the versions on some of the old PCs. And I think the other day it was on Atari systems, 5200, 7800, but I think this is the best version. And I really love Shoplifter. It's one of the fun games that I enjoyed back in the day and still do. Now, Double Dragon. We saw Double Dragon on the Commodore 64. Now, this is the Master System version. There are better versions, but this Sega Master System version was a lot of fun still. I enjoyed it. I owned it on the Nintendo NES, and I owned this version. And I had fun with both for their own rights. Now, this one is a lot of fun, feels good, very fluid, and a lot of fun. I really enjoy the Dragon Warrior series. And as you can see, it plays pretty good, and a lot of challenging. Rambo, which is called Secret Commando, I believe, in Europe, because they couldn't get the Rambo license. Now this is not as good as of course, the Sega Genesis version of Rambo 3, but for a Master System game back in its day, it's not bad. It plays sort of like a version of Commando with less fluid levels. It's not as fluid as it runs as good as Commando does, but it does play good, kind of like a cross between what was I going to say, Akari Warriors and Commando, kind of in between both of those. So it's a fun game. Rustin, fantastic game. Well, we were used to playing Dungeons and Dragons back in the day, the role-playing game, and we had this at the shop that we'd go to. It was a comic shop back in the day. They had this arcade game there, and of course we'd everybody throw quarters in the Rustin game. I don't know if you say Rustin or Rastin, but I always say Rustin. Played Dungeons and Dragons. It has a lot of Dungeons and Dragon elements to it, the characters and so on, so pretty cool. Anyways, that is it for my list from 7 years old to about 15. Unfortunately, I did skip over a lot of games, but that is just because if I talked about them, the video would go on forever. It would just be super long, because there are so many great games on multiple systems, everything from the Nintendo NES, the Sega Master System, the Atari 2600, 5200, 7800, and so on. So I've never been a fanboy. I've played all systems, so I just appreciate the games for what they are. And so there's quite a few games to talk about, and so I skipped over them, just talked about some little highlights here and there. And anyway, so let me know what your list is. Let me know what system you grew up with, because I'm sure not everyone grew up with a Nintendo NES. I'm sure some people grew up with like Genesis, some people grew up with PlayStation 2, so on. So let me know what your experiences are, what some of your favorite games are, what systems you grew up with. Anyways, that is it for this episode. I hope you liked it. Like I said, I can't believe I'm 50, but it is true. I am actually 50 years old. So anyways, that is it for this episode. I hope you liked it. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and as always, have a good one. Take care, everybody. Until next time.